Okay, I'd like to call the regular city council meeting to order on May 17th, 2022 at 5:30 PM. Members of the public may join in person or access a live feed. Virtual option does not allow for public comment. May I have a roll call, please?
Jan Joplin,
Austin Degenhart.
James Conner.
And Mayor Linda Rhodes. At this time, we will conduct the election business section of the agenda, recognition of outgoing council members. Mr. Hall?
Yes, I'd just like to give a recognition for your service that you have done for the city. In 2008, you was elected to your council member seat 4, correct? From there, you served to 2020 and was reelected again to your same seat. In July of 2021, you was mayor pro tem, and you presented the role of mayor at that time up to this point. And as for the city, I just want to congratulate you for that, and just the mere fact of serving the city of Kennedale and putting your time and effort to be a part of us and helping us move forward into the future. And I just want to say thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Thank you. The other incoming council members will have their opportunity for comment during the latter part of the agenda. At this time, I would like to take this opportunity to give a statement. It has been a true honor and privilege to serve you for the last 4 years on council. Some positive things have taken place, and some are very close to be taking place. For example, the approval of an increase in the over 65 and disabled property tax exemptions for our seniors and disabled persons. That to me was huge. That was an increase the council gave, and it was about $10,000 more. No, it wasn't. It was $10,000 more exemption on their property tax. And that may not sound like a lot, but it is to folks that are on limited income. Other positive things, just briefly, were employee salary adjustments, Magnolia Hills residential development, the passage of a certificate of obligation to help fund much needed items such as an ambulance, which we are patiently waiting on to receive that still. That takes a long time to obtain. And then most recently, gearing up for the celebration of the 75th anniversary of the city's incorporation. I have always maintained a high level of ethics, integrity, and dedication. I have only missed one council meeting during the whole 4 years, and we have had a lot this last year, a lot of extra meetings. That one time that I missed was due to a family member having emergency surgery from a major vehicle accident. I have voted and acted in the best interest of the city as a whole. I have always supported our senior center and our senior citizens, whether it be maintaining water sewer discounts and garbage discounts, or as I mentioned before, the property tax exemption increase, supporting reopening the center once the COVID issue had eased up a little bit, and we felt that it was safe for our seniors to go back to the center. And then most recently, inquiring of the city council if the city could provide transportation to the annual Tarrant County Senior Synergy event. And our interim city manager did see that that happened, and I thank you for that. I look forward to good things happening at the senior center. Next month, we have the new director coming on board. I believe our community is composed of good people with mainly good intentions. There are, however, a few that can act like wolves in sheep clothing and try to harm others with words and spread untruths. That's defamation of character. There was one really ugly thing that went about me during the campaigning season. And that happens because there's ugly politics. But for it to come from certain people that claim certain things, that's shocking. One of the things that was said was that I supposedly covered up for someone, and I did not. I can look you straight in the eye and tell you I did not. That was simply not true. But on the other hand, I can tell you what is true. There are sitting council members who have violated city charter, and some who have acted very unethically. And as far as accountability of actions, it's you, the voters. You need to be informed of the truth, because it's you that decide the fate of future elections. I want to thank all the residents for your support and allowing me to serve you. It has been a pleasure. I really enjoy being in the council position because you do get that voice and you get that vote. That means so much. So each one of you, don't take that for granted. And I want to thank the employees for your hard work and your commitment to the community. Your efforts do not go unnoticed. And to this council, I want to thank you for your time. It's time that you spend that you could be doing something else, but because you care about your city, you're here. I do want to caution you, though, to remember that you're serving not only your supporters, but you're also supporting the other half of the city. I really wanted to see a bridge built in the community, but as long as it's one-sided, either way, it can't happen. Council serves the whole city and not just half. I challenge you to put that representation into action. I want to thank our city attorneys, TOASE, T-O-A-S-E. I have had the pleasure of working with them for many, many years. The first attorney that I worked with was Alan Taylor. He's the T in TOASE. And he was the one that came and trained our city staff and the board at that time for our newly created Board of Adjustment, of which I was a secretary. And now, most recently, I have had the opportunity to work with Mr. Carvin Atkins, and he is the A in TOASE. And who knows, someday I may have the opportunity to work with them again. Lastly, I want to thank my family, especially my husband. He is my biggest supporter. He is my rock. And now we can go on vacation without worrying about if I'm going to miss a meeting. I'm almost done. Even though I'm a leader, I'm also a follower. And this is evident that God has shown me over and over and over throughout the years. He knows the path that I must take and follow. For example, after working almost 20 years here as a city employee, due to financial reasons, my path changed and I had to leave my comfort zone, go to work for another city at a different position that I'd never done before. It was the best move. He knew what was best. And then after 15 years there, I was blessed to be able to retire and watch my grandchildren. What a joy is that? This was a huge life-changing event for me, though, because it was a different path. I had been used to the working 8 to 5 Monday through Friday and then many council meetings. So for me to change that, that was very different. 1 year later, I was elected on this council. I never thought that I would serve on city council. I did it because I thought I could help and make a difference. 3 years later, I was appointed as the mayor pro tem, and then shortly afterwards as your mayor, thus making Kennedale history as the first female mayor in Kennedale. I never aspired for those positions nor saw them in my future, but he did. And I followed and fulfilled those roles to the best of my ability until the end. He knew the plans that he had for me. Now here we are, May 2022, and I'm eager to see where God sends me, what kind of path that he's going to lead me on to now. He has the plans and he gives me my hope and my future. I want to close with a message to all of you. Our city is much like what you see on our national level. And it doesn't matter if you like or dislike people that are elected in office. What you need to do is pray. Pray for your city. Pray for your leaders. We all need it. We need to ask that the eyes, the ears, and the hearts are open to make wise decisions in the best interest for the city as a whole. This council has some extremely important decisions coming up, and each of you know it. The public probably knows most of them, but you know everything that's coming down the pipes. The hiring of a city manager, the hiring of a city secretary, developments, contracts, and then, of course, the annual budget and tax setting process that we all go through every year. These are just a few of the things that are coming up. So I ask again for you to please pray fervently, because the future of our city it depends on it. Thank you. Thank you again for letting me serve you. It's been a pleasure. Next item. Okay. Thank you. That was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. Thank you. Okay, the next item is certification of the official election returns. Ms. Rosie?
Yes, the certified cumulative returns are reported as follows. Mayor Hollis Matthews, 426 votes, 52.79%. Jeff Navarez, 381, 47.21%. City Council, Place 2, Gary Mitchell, 100% at 604 votes. City Council, Place 4, Linda Rhodes with 372, 46.73%. Austin Degenhart, incumbent, 424 with 53.27% of the vote. As a result of these tabulations, it would appear that the following are hereby elected: Hollis C. Matthews, Mayor; Gary Mitchell, City Council, Place 2; Austin Degenhart, City Council, Place 4. I would now ask for a motion acknowledging council's receipt of the certification of these official returns for the election held Saturday, May 7th, 2022, and approving that they be filed with the city's election register as page 76.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote with a raise of hands. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All voting in favor, motion approved unanimous. Thank you. And the next item is to consider approval of a resolution canvassing the returns and declaring the results of the general election held on May 7th, 2022 for the purpose of electing the places of mayor and city council members, place 2 and 4, and for the city of Kennedale. Did you have anything to add, Mr. Hall? Okay, thank you. I'd like to open the floor for a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion to approve the resolution.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a show of hands. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Motion approved unanimously. And then the next item is oath of offices, and for each incoming, the first one is for Hollis C. Matthews for mayor for 2022 and 2024. And I would like to turn this over to Daryl Hall now, so he can handle that. And I would ask you to please step forward and I guess right here in the front, right? By the podium, maybe? We want the public to see you that's watching online, okay? So, Ms.
Carolyn
Caroline.
Green's gonna do the oath.
Mayor, if I can make a recommendation, if we can move to our reports and announcements to C, so we can do some swearing in of our fire and police personnel. That way they don't have to hand around to our executive session, and if they need to go back to work, they may do so.
Just take a show of hands on that. Thank you. Okay, first thing I want to do is welcome all of y'all to the council meeting tonight. I'm going to do a little skipping around on the agenda for the sake of a lot of good people that we've got waiting out there in the audience. But I want to see their faces and everything, and enjoy their promotions and tell them well done. I'll do that in a minute. So we're going to skip over to the swearing in for the fire department. Chief, please take care of that, Chief Brown. Sounds good. Well, I understand that. Well, they're bashful, but the fact of the matter is they save our city. And that's acknowledged.
Thank you. Told you, back of the room. It's my honor tonight to recognize two of our firefighters for the completion of their probationary period. Our probationary period is 1 year. During the probationary period, it's the most arduous year of their life. I mean, we subject them to training, and then we subject them to more training, and then we subject them to even more training. That first year is a large educational curve for them, even though they've been through fire school. The way Kennedale works can be different than other places that they may have been trained at or places that they have been. So the first year is quite a bit of work for them. These two personnel have done an excellent job during this time frame. I'm so proud and happy to ask them to come forward. Kenneth Howard, Brandon Birch, step forward, please. So what we do is we bring them in, we swear them in, and then we will have their significant other pin their badges on them tonight. We call this a swearing in, but a badge pinning ceremony for all of these. So I will read this to y'all. So if I could get Brittany and Norma to come up.
Would y'all stand with me while we acknowledge this? Now, let me tell you something. In the military, we drive the pin home. So, Chief, I'll leave that with you.
Thank you.
A lot of smiles. That's good. That's a good deal. Now, if Chief Hogging to come up, we would like to see him also do some of the same stuff. So please, sir.
Thank you.
Mike's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're bringing back a previous employee. We did a battlefield commissioning, so to speak, in the chief's office, and I do have proof of that. I brought a picture of him on the afternoon that he came in, volunteered to come in early. He was scheduled to come in Monday, but of course, the tragic events that happened the week prior to the day he was supposed to be scheduled to come in, he gave me a call and he said, "Hey, if you guys could use some help, have the chief come swear me in." And Chief Hall was not the interim city manager yet. He was still over at the police department as the chief. And I said, "Give me a few minutes." And he said, "Okay." And called him back, said, "Chief said, come on in." And so that's the kind of character that he is known for his entire career. He's had over a 20-year career already in law enforcement. Started in 1996. I started as a jailer in Johnson County and worked his way here, served the city of Kennedale for 17 years before he retired in 2019. Just like myself, decided to go away for a little while, but the profession, the service called us back. And we are so blessed and so lucky to have him. So his commissioning has already happened in terms of getting him his authorities by the state, really unceremoniously, but within an hour, he was helping us on that case. And for that, we really, truly appreciate him doing that. So this ceremony is the oath of honor, which we've done here before with other officers that we've already sworn in. So I can have Mr. Eric Carlson, who is also, by the way, our acting sergeant, because he was the sergeant of the investigations unit before he left. So he's helping me out over there managing the police department at this point in time. He managed the investigations group for quite some time before he retired. So seasoned veteran detective, seasoned veteran police manager and supervisor. So I'm going to go ahead and have you read this for us. If you can just turn and face the community. Law enforcement oath of honor. On my honor, I will never tarnish my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public. I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I will always uphold the Constitution. I understand that I am now a member of a value-driven organization. I will lead by example, hold my peers accountable, partner with the community. Congratulations.
This gentleman.
Speech?
Oh, no speeches. No,
No
nothing.
speeches
No,
today.
thank you. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Again, thank you for letting us be here today. And he's a great asset to our community and can be a tremendous continued asset for everything we're trying to do in the police department to serve our wonderful city. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. That's a real pleasure. Of course, as all of y'all know, I'm an ex-police officer also. About 8 years service, part of that in the military in Berlin. And I'll tell you, there's no greater thing than the honor of our fire and police here in Kennedale. They are matchless. And why would I say that? Because they saved my life one night. Hey, that's a pretty good deal. And didn't even let me say thank you. So I say thank you now if I don't ever get a chance to do that again. I did spend some time working for Jay Banks, ex-captain of the Texas Rangers, Company B, and learned some great things there. So again, admiration and honor to all of you. So, and this guy right here, let me tell you about this guy right here. And I can kind of play with this thing a little bit because, you know, nobody slapped my wrist yet. But anyhow, let me tell you about Daryl. Daryl Hull is one of the most even-toned, far-reaching in his thinking. He is a gentleman every way you want to work with him. And he thinks I'm just saying that. I'm not. I think I've talked to a lot of citizens in this town, and they all say the same thing. We are fortunate to have this guy as our acting city manager. We are fortunate to have him still as our chief of police, as we are with Chief Brown on our fire department. So again, you know, one of the things I would love to do is change the tone a little bit in Kennedale. We've got a lot of great people here. And it doesn't cost anything to just say thank you. Just say thank you. Drop over and talk to the fire dogs, walk over, talk to the police officers. And if you got an attitude, take it someplace else. We don't need it. I used to throw them in jail for that, but not really, but anyhow, just a little humor there. But anyhow, good people, and I trust that you will try that. One of the questions they asked me when I was first thinking about this thing, the ladies group in Arlington, and they asked me, they said, what do you want to achieve in Kennedale? Why are you doing this? Obviously, you've got a successful business. You seem to be enjoying life. And why do you want to do this? And I said, you know, I've been real lucky. I've lived here 23 years. And the reason I moved to Kennedale was I come from West Texas on a ranch. I like country people. I like people that still recognize others and just say howdy. It doesn't cost anything, people. If we pull this city together, and there's a few that has some bad attitudes, but again, everybody's opinion is welcome. And you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see workshops where we bring the citizens in, because after all, we work for the citizens. You guys own this thing. What we need, the last piece before we start this thing up, and we've got a 100-day plan in front of us. We're all looking at it, but we want to make sure that it's your plan. So please, my door's always open. My phone works all the time. Chief Hulls does, the council. And I can tell you some things about the council since we're talking. Somebody asked me the other day, said, well, in fact, one of the things they asked me, said, do you think you can get along with them? I said, I believe I can. Said, they're good people. And we have people, and I want to start with Jan over there. Jan understands paperwork. She understands what's good for the community. She listens to the community. She's always out walking, asking questions. That's invaluable. And when she gives me advice, or when I talk to her about other issues, we do it in a very civil manner. I'm very proud to be serving with her. Gary Mitchell. Gary is a man of God. I can't tell you how much I admire what he does, feeding people that are hungry, taking clothing to them, working with the citizens everywhere in the world. There's so many people that call and say, hey, Gary, you understand, can you help me? And each time they do that, he said, let me look at the situation. Let me see what I can do. I mean, what can you ask? I want to talk about Ken here. Ken is a by the law man. He admires the law and holds it dear to him. You can count on what he says because he believes that the right way is the only way. I admire that, sir. I am proud to be working with you. And this guy right over here. Anybody know what that is? Yeah. Go ahead. What is it? Guns Up. That's Guns Up. He's a good Texas Tech guy. But this guy has forgot more about construction and the different aspects of construction than anybody we have in this town. He is very knowledgeable. He travels all over the United States, putting in big buildings, box stores, assisting with this type of process, locating them, looking at the plumbing, looking at the electrical. He's an expert in his field, and we're certainly fortunate to have him on the board. And on top of that, I got to tell you this, you got a beautiful child and another one about to get here. So be kind to him. He works hard, believe me, and his wife does love him. Not God knows why, but anyhow. Now this guy right over here, James, Mr. James, and I say Mr. very sincerely. James is an accountant. He's the bulldog. He's the guy that if you've got good ideas and you talk about money and you talk about good ideas, he's going to ask you some questions. He wants to serve you very badly, as all the council does, and they work for y'all. So without further ado, and this is taking up y'all's time, and I apologize for that, I want to do one other thing. The former mayor, let's talk about her a second, Miss Linda. And see, since I've got gray hair, I can call people Mr. So-and-so or Miss Linda or whatever. That's code of the West. But anyhow, having said that, and it hadn't dawned on you yet, but it'll get there. Miss Linda has done us an excellent job. She's put a lot of hours in. She's put a lot of time into our city. And the one thing I can say about her is she loves Kennedale. If you don't love Kennedale, you're probably in the wrong business up here. I hope that you will treat her kindly, recognize her. Wouldn't even hurt to just take her out and have lunch and thank her personally. So I hope you'll do that. But again, that's, I appreciate y'all putting up with my rambling. I want to tell you about that lady right down there. I'm not going to leave her out. Everybody thinks they get out of this deal, but nobody gets out. She always has a smile on her face. And she's the one that tells me, hey, Hollis, have you lost your mind? So, ma'am, I thank you. This is a good relationship. Good. It's very good. Then, of course, we've got our attorney, and he's senior attorney. So I'm really, really proud to be working with him. And I think great things are just on the cusp. So please don't hesitate to tell me what you're thinking. I can't fix it if you don't. The council can't fix it because I work for them. Thank you. I'm leaning weight. I do that sometimes, but, and then we've got the staff and they're just growing and growing and growing. And I can tell you, in the next meeting, I will tell you individual things about them as I learn them and learn those things and I get to watch them and I'm excited. Thanks, guys, for all your work. And we've got an accounting person in here too. Woo-ha. All right. Congratulations, ma'am. Okay, so the next thing we do is, if Daryl will keep me out of trouble here, is the consent agenda. Is that correct? Okay. Work session. Okay, we'll call it the work session. It's a consent agenda. So we're going to approve the meetings from April 19th, 2022 in the regular meeting. We're going to have approval of the, or at least to discuss them if we need to, and then approve them. Approvals of the minutes for April 21st, 2022, special meeting. Number 3, approval for the minutes from the April 28th, 2022 special meeting. And number 4, we're going to consider an ordinance amending the membership of the Keep Kennedale Beautiful KKB Commission. And then of course, number 5, we're going to consider resolution repealing resolution number 598, which amended the certificate of formation and bylaws of the Kennedale Economic Development Corporation by adding 2 advisory non-voting members. I think it's going to be really, really important. So having said that, and I'll start with you, Jan. Do you have any discussion?
The consent agenda, the only question I have is, was there an ordinance and a resolution attached? Or did I miss that in the? I didn't see,
No, it was not.
it wasn't attached. Okay. Do we want to? I mean, I'm okay with what we're doing with them, but we just don't have one to look at.
I can provide one.
Point of order?
Yes, sir. We're supposed to be in the work session right now. The consent agenda item is actually, we start the actual council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't started a council
Oh,
meeting
that's
because we haven't had the pledge of allegiance or the.
Okay.
forms.
Good
So
point.
we-
Thank you.
We skipped some.
Go to the work session.
First page, okay, thank you for keeping me out of the board edge. Okay, we did the oath of offices, did all of that. Now we're in the work session report. Okay, that's where we're at. Okay, thank you. We're supposed to hold a discussion on the Texas Water Development Board TWDB grant. And then next would be the request for clarification of items listed on the agenda. Now, the way this thing is set up for me, the next thing we go into is the invocation and pledges. Is that correct? Okay. Okay. Max, you gonna take over then? Okay, we're gonna hold a discussion on the Texas Water Development Board. I believe that's what you're gonna talk about, sir. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay,
I brought
Proceed.
you out.
Can I open my laptop? Have an issue right here. All right.
Yeah. Somebody else try their account? Other user?
No.
Sorry, folks.
Okay, since we're having a little equipment problem, are y'all ready to go?
I believe so.
Okay, well, let's just proceed on then.
Thank you.
No.
This might take a few minutes.
Never mind, yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna touch it.
Mhm.
Just gotta let it.
We're almost there.
There we go.
No problem.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Max Aronson. I work with Shield Engineering Group. We are one of the consultant engineers for the city of Kennedale. And today I'd like to talk to you about the Valley Lane Slope Stabilization Project. I know I've talked to many of you about it before, but just want to refresh you on where we're at with the project. So to begin, Valley Lane, it's runs parallel to Kennedale Branch, which is a major watershed within Kennedale. So pretty much most of Kennedale drains right along Valley Lane and ultimately gets to Lake Arlington. This road is a sole access point for 44 individual properties with an estimated number of 582 daily trips per day. That means there's 582 vehicles touching that road every day based on estimates. So over the years, since 2015, we've seen multiple slope failures along the road due to excessive erosion happening along the Kennedale Branch whenever water's flowing through there. I've got a few pictures up there. The first one's from 2015. There's a major roadway failure right along the side of the road. You can see the asphalt cracking, the road actually slipping down into the channel itself. The channel is going to be on the right-hand side of that picture. If we jump to 2016, we found a second slope failure along the side of the road where the asphalt again is cracking and dropping down into the channel itself. And then again in 2018, there's a full slope failure in a similar location on the left-hand side of the channel. You can actually see the creek on the side where the road actually partially washed away and went into the creek. So this has been an ongoing issue over the past, 7 years now. And unfortunately, there has not been much done regarding the roadway itself to actually stabilize the slope. But right now, that's what we're trying to solve. So there's been continuous slope failures along the side of the road for the past 7 or so years. That's proven to be a safety hazard for citizens and the traveling public along that road. And this is a very critical roadway because it is the sole access point to, again, 44 individual properties. So unfortunately, if this road goes, there's no other alternative to access those properties. So I move on to a proposed solution for this project. It's going to be installing roughly 1,900 linear feet of rock stabilized gabion walls. I have an example picture on the screen. It's basically just stacked baskets of rocks that will help mitigate any sort of erosion alongside of the slope of the roadway and will hopefully prevent any future roadway failures once this is actually implemented. Along with the project, there's also going to be a safety guardrail installed along the top of the rock wall and along the edge of Valley Lane itself to help the traveling public from potentially any dangerous traverse along the side of the road as they're driving down. So let me jump to the cost because that's what everybody wants to know about. So current estimates for the project, engineering and survey alone, we anticipate a cost of roughly $375,000 for that project. With a construction cost of about $185,000 or $1.85 million, excuse me, with a total of $2.225 million for the entire project. And that would be getting it from survey through design and ultimately implementing the plan in the actual field and getting the road back and stabilized to a safe standard again. We've run some cost benefit analysis on actually repairing this road. And with a rock stabilized gabion wall that we would be introducing into this project, it's got a benefit of roughly $4.3 million. So the cost outweigh the benefit based on a cost analysis that we did as part of, I'll get a little bit further into that in a minute, as part of a grant application that we did submit for. And the useful life of the project, we anticipate lasting about 50 years before major maintenance or overhaul would have to be done. So with this project, we know it's got a big price tag on it. So we've actually gone out and acquired some funding for the project through different agencies. The first that we have acquired funding from is from the Texas Water Development Board. They've got a specific grant opportunity called the Flood Infrastructure Fund. So far from that fund alone, we've received $432,000 for that project, which is about 20% of the total engineering and construction costs for the project. We are currently in talks with the Texas Department of Environmental Management as well for an additional grant opportunity. This one can fund up to 75% of construction cost. So that would be 75% of that $1.8 million estimate for the construction. So hopefully we can get somewhere up towards that 75% range and get another $1.3 million for the project itself for construction. But all in all, going over this project, it's a very critical project for the city of Kennedale, not only because it's a safety concern, but if this road, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when this becomes a severe safety hazard and this road actually does fail, that this could cost the city a lot more money than what this $2.2 million we're estimating it to be. So I just, Daryl invited me here today to just give you a presentation on what we've come up with and what we're going through with this project and what the foreseeable future is for this project. Now, jumping on to the next slide, I've got a rough schedule of implementation of this project. Currently, we've secured grant fundings for that TWDB grant, that first one I showed you, that $432,000. We're in the process of trying to get additional funding from the Texas Department of Environmental Management. We anticipate that getting finally approved, if we do get approved, would be July of 2023, which is great because that's exactly right when we're going to plan to start construction. So we get funding for both right about construction time. Now, we will know if we get the funding beforehand. It's just a matter of getting through the processes and actually getting the funding transferred into the correct bank accounts for us to use. So starting today, if we secured one grant funding, we're going off for the second one. Project design roughly will take about a year. That's just based on the multiple submittals that we have to do for the grant application itself to actually move through the process. We anticipate actually bidding the project to different contractors out in the summer of next year, with construction starting in late summer of next year and going on to early the following year. And then finally, project closeout is just finalizing all the papers, making sure all the grant funding is secured and making sure that everyone gets paid. And that would be a completion time of about 2 years from today. So with that, I'd like to see if anybody has any questions on the project or what we're going after for these grant applications.
I just appreciate the schedule. I appreciate taking us from A to Z, where we were, and helping everyone understand that this is something that's been needed for many years. And I guess the only thing that I want to use the word sad about, because I'm very happy about the grants and I'll definitely will be, hoping that you continue to get those, but that it's going to take 2 years to finish.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely be praying for the road to hold up during those 2 years, so, but I don't have any questions. This is, the Gabion walls. I've seen those presented for some of our erosion issues on Winding Creek as well. And so I don't have any questions at all, but I do appreciate the full A to Z presentation to us, helping us to understand. And that's exactly what it was priced out. The last pricing I saw was at the 2-point-something million dollars. So, and I think that we had decided that in our bond that we have, that there was some money set aside for this project as well. So that'll be nice as these grant comes in that we can use that money for something else. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah, yes, sir.
Max, thank you for that presentation. I do have a couple of questions here. The first, we've known about this issue for 7 years, and it's just now being brought before council. Can you give me any background as to why it's taken so long to get to this point?
So this project, from my understanding, has been brought previously, but unfortunately, funding was not available at the time.
Okay. I saw on the cost breakdown, looks like engineering is about 16% of the total project cost. Is Shield proposed to do the engineering on this project, or is it going to be put out for a competitive bid?
Currently, there's no accepted proposal for the project, and it is open to the city to determine how they'd like to proceed with the project.
Okay, thank you. Can you go back to the grant funding slide, please?
Yes.
Okay, so the TWDB grant funding, that's excellent that they're able to match us 20%. Thank you for your help and assistance on getting that secured. And also on the TDEM grant funding. The question I have is, for the TDEM, it says up to 75% of total construction cost. Does that also include engineering, or is that strictly construction cost related?
So for this grant, you can go for both, but because it's such a time-sensitive matter, we want to start design next month. So whichever engineer would ultimately get selected, we'd like to pursue design starting next month or the month after.
Mhm.
Because if we don't, we can't, TDEM takes about a year to approve the grant funds.
Sure.
We can't push this out another year to start design just to wait for a little bit of extra funding for design.
Okay. And then on the budget slide, so we're anticipating the total project cost at 2.2. Do we have escalation figured into that, considering it's going to be another year at least before we start breaking ground?
Yes, so this was the estimate given, provided to TWDB when we first submitted the grant, and there was a 20% escalation, and that grant was submitted late last year.
Okay, perfect. That should be enough to cover it. And then the last question I have is, can council get a copy of this presentation just
Yeah.
for our records, since it wasn't able to be put into our packet?
Absolutely.
That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
My turn. I'm actually with him. We noticed this problem back in 2015. Why wasn't this done sooner? You said funding wasn't available. Back in 2015, as opposed to now, wouldn't the cost have been lower? By how much approximately?
I could not tell you. Unfortunately, I don't have those numbers in front of me.
20, 30% maybe?
If I were to ballpark, I would say anywhere between 10 to 30%.
Okay, So we could have got a cost benefit back in 2015 when this was very first looked at. I'm looking at your grant proposal of grant possible because it's up to 75%. Doesn't exactly say what we would be approved for because it's still in processing. So that would be a 1,819,785 possible total amount, leaving $405,215 out of pocket. Now that could come from our bonds, of course. That shouldn't be an issue. However, Max, can you refresh my memory? Wasn't this just issued by TxDOT as a catastrophic failure?
I'm not aware of TxDOT analyzing this roadway, because it's not a TxDOT roadway.
It's not a TxDOT road. However, I do remember in our budgeting, this was rated as a catastrophic failure. So a 2-year timeline on this for something that has been known about for the last 7 years, we're looking at maybe another 2 years. Why can't we fast track this any faster?
So the reason we can't fast track this is because of the nature of the project. There's a lot of environmental constraints that we have to go through.
Okay.
And unfortunately, environmental constraints involve the federal government as well as TxDOT. We have to go through TxDOT because we'll be touching Business 287, which is part of TxDOT. And those processes just take time. The engineering itself isn't going to be the huge amount of time that you're going to see between that gap of about a year for design. That's mostly going to be in review because we have to go through the EPA, Texas Environmental Quality Management. It's also part of the grant, the $432,000 that's already been approved. Part of that process, we actually have to submit an environmental study and a feasibility report, which alone takes at least 3 months to review before they allow the project to progress further.
So for a project that we've known about now for 7 years, why wasn't this done? Why wasn't any kind of EPA standards or why wasn't any of the legwork already done on this beforehand so that we could, if needed to, break ground immediately?
So there was some legwork done previously. There was a schematic drawn of a concept plan and as well as multiple options that were looked at. Ultimately, rock gaping and structure to stabilize the wall was the ideal solution, not only because it's the very cost effective for our area, for the DFW area, but it's also very easily implemented in the field.
And have we talked to the Army Corps of Engineers about this?
From my understanding, we've got an environmental engineer that's looked at this for us. We don't believe that the Army Corps needs to get involved for this because we will not be affecting the floodway or the floodplain.
But it's still in a floodplain. In a 100-year flood, a maximum 100-year flood, it would still flood, correct?
You're correct. So there's ways to get around having to submit to the Army Corps. For that type of stuff, primarily basically you're removing volume from that area. So the overall project will remove volume from that area, which theoretically provides extra storage for water when water does exceed capacity of the channel. So that would theoretically lower the water surface elevation.
We're not reducing capacity, so therefore they shouldn't necessarily need to get involved. Is that right?
Exactly. That's the goal of the project, is to not get them involved because that will extend the process even further. And it'll also increase the design cost as well.
Why would it increase the design cost?
Because you'd have to do additional studies for FEMA because it's regulated by FEMA as well as the Army Corps. So additional studies would have to be done. That means additional modeling, extra engineering costs that just adds up, as well as additional surveying costs. So at this point, we believe this is the most cost-effective solution to actually get this project implemented and the quickest time matter while still securing the grant funding.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and this might be a question for finance, but don't we have like a little over $2 million in ARPA funds? Million? Okay. Okay. I didn't know if any of that could go to this or anything like that. Good point. All right, thank you. One last question. We're again talking about 2 years now. In that 2-year time frame, if this road does wash out, what do we do?
There is an emergency scenario for this area. There is a extension of Trent Street. Trent Street is the road on the opposite side of the channel. There is a connection point from Trent Street, the end. It doesn't go up to Business 287, but there's a possibility to extend it up to Business 287. Engineering plans have already been completed for that extension. So if an emergency were to happen, that could be a possible alternative. But at this point, it would be a temporary solution to the ultimate concern right here, which is Valley Lane. So we're moving forward with this project to try to get this done and save the city, because that project would cost, I think the last estimate I saw was about $700,000, and that was at least a year ago at this point. So it's probably escalated some from there. So we believe it's more advantageous to put the money towards this project, because this project has to get done either way.
You're correct. It does need to get done. I can also think of a couple other roads in the city that need to get done as well. So if by chance we don't get the full 75% from TDEM, that could make our out-of-pocket go a little bit higher. And thankfully, there's been a 20% escalation involved in this. If for some strange, odd reason, and building materials come down, which I don't think will ever happen, but still it could, stranger things have happened. Would we be entitled to any type of a refund to the city in ways of any kind of costs or anything like that?
Are you asking if the project doesn't cost, say it costs 2 million rather than the 2.2 million?
Yeah.
Would there be a refund to the city?
Yes.
So the way that the current grant that we received works is that the city will put up the first 80%. And then once that 80% is spent, the 20% match will get initiated. So if the project costs less, the city's not going to get that full 20%. Yeah, but at this point, I don't anticipate it cost dropping down by 20%.
So the lifetime benefits, you say it's for $4,370,000. Useful life is 50 years. That's approximately $87,400 per year. Now, if something does go wrong with this before that 50-year lifeline, say 30 years from now, there's a catastrophic flood and everything gets wiped away, what would be the cost to fix all that? Or is that, or is it a guarantee that, someone was going to come out here and just fix it for free?
Nothing's a guarantee with that. For these types of projects, there's a maintenance bond, which basically requires a contractor to maintain and make sure that what they built does not fail and actually stays working.
So there's a fail-safe in
standards.
place.
There's a fail-safe. Unfortunately, typically those only last about 2 years though. So you have a 2-year, you basically have a 2-year warranty on the project. But something like this, I've knock on wood, I've never seen a failure of a gabion wall structure or heard of one.
Let me ask
I'll defer that to you.
a question that's along the similar lines. So with shoring up the erosion and fixing Valley Lane, are we also going to be expanding it? And the reason I ask that is if we're looking at potentially a 50-year useful life cycle on this street, I would anticipate that within the next 50 years, that road is going to need to be made wider, perhaps. Do we have any forecasts as to if that is a real possibility? And if so, should we also take that into consideration to go ahead and do that now instead of tearing up something in 30 years that could have been taken care of?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Anticipation.
So this roadway is not a part of the master thoroughfare plan, which just shows what the roads are anticipated to look like 50 years from now. Take, for example, New Hope Road is supposed to be a 4-lane road in the future, just to help sprawl future development. Valley Lane is not on that plan. It's not anticipated to get widened or extended in any way. It's proposed to still just connect that small subdivision of 44 lots. Future plans for that area I've seen in the parks plan is to actually buy up all the property along that area. So I don't think widening the road is something that's planned for in the future, just because it's such a low volume road. And it's not a direct connection into anything besides those individual lots that that road solely serves.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't doing something now that we would pay double for
Mhm.
later on if it had to be redone.
And just for giggles, is there any way that we can see kind of a price differential, price breakdown of actually doing a widening, just in case that property isn't bought out? Because the comp plan is, well, it's almost 11 years old. And that might be changed in the future. We don't know. So that might not be, all that land might not be bought up and it be turned into something by Parks or Recreation or whoever. So I would actually like to see like a cost breakdown, like an actual plan like we have here, and a widening, because what something says, and we've seen this in Kennedale before, what something says on paper generally is not what translates to what is actually going to be there. So it would be advantageous of us to go ahead and take a look at those now.
Let me add this. So that entire area, unfortunately, is stricken as undevelopable because it resolves completely in the floodplain and
Yes.
floodway, and getting it out of that area would, I couldn't even put a number to it. It would cost the city immense amounts of money to do so. Additionally, with widening the road, there's no room on the side of the road that doesn't have the channel, but the only room that there is on the side of the channel. Now, jumping back to that, if we were to widen the road out, that means you're pushing the gabion walls further into the channel. That means you're reducing capacity. That means we have to go to FEMA. That means we have to go through all the processes and push this project back
Okay.
years.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments? I want to ask two.
Yes, sir.
Okay, number one is you indicated there could be a service contract that would extend that 2-year time period. What's the cost factor on that one?
Typically, that's not something that is done. I've seen it done before in very, very, very rare circumstances
Mhm.
where they extend the maintenance bond to a longer period of time, but the most I've ever seen it is to a period of 5 years. And that's a not very common situation for something like that to happen. Ultimately, if there was a maintenance issue with it, and within that 2 years, the contractor would come and fix it. If there was a maintenance issue 5 years down the road, which for something like this, I don't necessarily anticipate because there's no moving parts to it. Nothing's really flowing. It's more just a stabilization project. Then the city would be on the foot unless there was an extended agreement for maintenance. But if we talk about extended agreements from the get-go with the contractor, that's just going to increase the construction cost at the beginning because they have to pay their insurance companies an extra X amount of money for
Understand.
however many years.
Mhm. I understand that. The second question that I've got, and it gets used from a throw it at the wall situation, and that's a poor illustration. But the fact of the matter is, when people start telling me it's imminent, we're right in the middle of this thing, it's going to fall, it's going to fail, it's going to fail. That is a sales technique, sir, to get people to buy and pressure to buy. So I'm not aware, of course, again, first night on the job, but I'm not aware of what documentation is actually went in to Daryl to break this out so that the council can take a look at it and measure it. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think I understand. Unfortunately, there's no, obviously we don't like go out and take pictures of every single road right before these failures happen, unfortunately. So I don't really have before and after pictures. I do have pictures of the failures because that's when we come out and see what's going on. The biggest thing I would say is if you drive past it, you see those orange barricades that are along the side. That's protecting those. Let me jump back to those pictures. This 2015 picture that you see just cones now. Right now, there's those permanent big water barrel barricades along the side. That's protecting cars from going down there. And I think, let me see, did I put that picture in here? That's that same picture, or not that same location, but a couple years afterwards. So the road's fallen down even further since that first failure in 2015 along that side.
Okay.
So right now, this is a big safety concern. It's not I understand your point where it comes from a sales tactic, but if this were to fail, there would be I'm afraid there could be a heavy lawsuit.
Okay, then that brings up one other question. If it's that critical, and why hadn't we shut the roadway down?
Pardon?
Why have we not shut the roadway down if it's that critical?
Because it is the only access point to all those properties. I can't answer that. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I did want to go ahead and bring to your attention really quickly that back in October or November of last year, this road, Valley Lane, along with Colette Sublet, were rated imminent catastrophic failure by TxDOT. Yes. So these roads do need to be fixed immediately, Colette Sublet and Valley Lane both. I just asked our Rosie over here if she can get that information to you immediately, because in our budget talks, we were talking about that because we wanted some more money for the streets and we didn't see it was there. So sometime in October, November of last year, this was rated catastrophic failure, both roads, and they do need to be fixed. So even if it is just one life or, a sales tactic or whatever, the road can't be shut down because there are 44 properties down there, and that's the only access point, as Max did say. And also, with that being said, I would rather this get done. Unfortunately, we can't shut down the road. You're right, life is precious, whether it be an animal or human. However, if there is only one access point, I think that we might want to start taking a look at maybe making a second as well, just in case something like this does happen in the future.
Well, to that point, if I may, during the construction portion of this project, is traffic still going to be able to flow down the road as normal?
Yes, it should only require a 1-lane shutdown for this. It will require flagmen. So it'll be a little bit more expensive for traffic control, but that was factored into the costs.
Okay.
And I do want to point out one thing, and I apologize that it's not in this presentation. If you look at this map, this overall area, there's actually a sewer line that runs directly down that blue line that you see at that project location area.
Could you possibly zoom that in? I can't really see that well. I'm sorry.
Is there a way to zoom in PowerPoint? Oh, yep, there is. Perfect. Okay. So Valley Lane is right here. The channel is directly on the west side. So here's the channel right on top of this blue line. There is a sewer line that runs down Valley Lane, and this sewer line drains the entire west side of Kennedale. So everything on the west side of Business 287. So if this, again, another concern is if this road were to fail, that sewer line would fail, and all of the sewage from the west side of Kennedale would be unfortunately flowing into the creek, and that could be another environmental concern.
That's an EPA disaster.
Exactly.
Considering we're going to be disturbing the area directly adjacent to that sewer line, is there any future upsizing that's going to be needed for that line that it would make sense to go ahead and do that in conjunction with this project?
There is future upsizing that will be required for that line. That is a critical line actually for the future plans for all this, for serving all of west side of Kennedale. Currently it's undersized. However, there's been talks about replacing the line, but I don't recommend doing it until the slope stabilization project is completed. And the reason for that is we don't want to, typically that utility contractors are going to go in first, and they're going to And once the utility contractor's going first, they'll put the sewer line in, and then if they're vibrating and putting in the wall after that, that could damage that newly installed line. Additionally, I'm not aware of enough funding to put in the sewer line as well as repave the road at this time.
So just for my clarification, that the replacement of that sewer line at a future point in time will not have any negative impact to this slope stabilization project. They can be done independently of each other without negative impact.
Yes, that is correct. And that is because the sewer line is not right up next to the wall or the roadway. It's right down the middle.
Okay.
So there's about a 15-foot separation between the top of the wall and the sewer line.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
I got a question. I was noticing on your map that the bridge that right there on Valley, right before
This
the
one?
Grapevine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
Or
we
this
going to
one?
do anything with that? Because last time I drove through there, there's no guardrails. And we're worried about a road collapsing, and I've seen 3 garbage trucks go off that bridge. So is that something that we need to look at? Because that bridge is probably built in 1930s.
So yeah, I think Joe knows a little bit more about
It's
that.
actually a separate design for that. It's a secondary project to the South New Hope Bridge replacement. That the city has to take on 2 projects. One of the projects is the guardrail for the bridge on Trent. Any questions?
I have one. Considering all of the road and street projects that we have coming up, I would really like to see a prioritized list of the projects that need to be done with a ranked priority so that we can anticipate when they're going to happen, and also in anticipation of the new budget that'll be passed in October. We can get some of those planned for and budgeted and accounted for. That would be ideal.
And I would second that.
Yes, sir. So we're actually working with city staff right now to determine what the critical bond projects would be, as well as all the other critical infrastructure projects, ranging from water to sewer to streets to drainage.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
I would say that if there are any that are not deemed a priority, but there may be grant funding available, we could potentially go ahead and start the grant application process in anticipation of those projects coming up at a later date.
Yes, sir, absolutely. So we do continuously look into grant opportunities for the city of Kennedale. Typically, a lot of the grant opportunities that are funded by the state or the federal government, they're going to be more of these emergency scenarios like Valley Lane. So those are the ones that we're trying to do. So we know Valley Lane is the most critical project as of now, right now, that we're trying to solve. So that's why we're trying to get all this additional funding for Valley Lane.
Thank you. No further questions from me.
Absolutely.
Any further questions? Okay.
Thank you, Max.
Yep, absolutely.
Appreciate you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Number 4.
Mayor, can I ask for a break before we go on to? Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Take a break between now. Are we going into executive session? Yes, we are. Okay. Yes, so a break before executive session.
Sure. Okay. Executive session. The Kennedale City Council reserves the right to meet in executive closed session at any time during this meeting pursuant to the below cited sections of the Texas Governmental Code. Precedent A to 551.071. Consultation with the city attorney pertaining to any matter in which the duty of the city attorney under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct may conflict with the Open Meetings Act, including discussion of any items posted on the agenda, legal issues regarding the Open Meetings Act, and the following: 1, city manager; 2, Hammock Creek, 33-7 Kennedale Sublet Road. This one, B2. Okay, precedent to 55-1.074, deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public employee or employees, or to hear a complaint or charge against the officer or employee, and the following: 1, city manager. We go further than that.
Now state the time.
Take the time. Okay, time is 6:57 PM.
Brief break.
Hey, James. Thanks. We did good. Yeah. Been in there before. Oh, do you?
Are they on there?
I need to send the other one on there too. I've got this.
Never mind.
If I sang a
Yes,
little
sir.
harsh,
No, you are not at
what I'm
all.
doing
You are
is-
not at all.
is, just looking.
Yeah,
just
no,
looking,
no,
yeah.
you're looking out for the community. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
but I appreciate your
Yeah,
presentation.
absolutely. I've got another one tonight, so.
Okay.
So you want to save
That's
it?
that one. I'm gonna save it on desktop and I'll get it.
Okay. We're still locked into Joe's, I think.
Joe, can
Just,
email it
you
to
want
me.
just, yeah, I can email it to you tomorrow
Okay,
or.
if you wanna do that.
Yeah, I can.
Because
do that.
Leslie has a folder on here. That's what
Oh,
on the other
okay.
one, and I slide everything into there. So email them to me and I'll
Okay.
slide it. That sounds good.
That sounds good. I'm gonna go put the other